January 7th, 2026, 2:14 a.m., Novorossiysk Naval Port, Black Sea, Russia. One of Russia's most heavily defended maritime facilities, home to the Black Sea Fleet's most valuable assets: submarines, surface combatants, layered coastal defenses. Below the waterline, silence. No radar warnings, no air defense alerts, no incoming contacts. 2:16 a.m. An uncrewed underwater vehicle slips past the harbor perimeter. Electric propulsion. Minimal acoustic signature. Invisible to surface-based sensors. 2:18 a.m. The drone slows behind an improved Kilo-class submarine, docked and assumed safe, less than 10 meters from the stern, the most vulnerable point on the vessel. 2:19 a.m. Detonation. What happens next isn't just an explosion. It's the moment naval warfare quietly changes. Novorossiysk is not just a port. It is Russia's fallback fortress on the Black Sea. After repeated Ukrainian strikes forced Russian vessels away from Sevastopol, Moscow needed a place that felt untouchable. Farther from Ukrainian launch zones protected by layered coastal defenses and constantly monitored, Novorossiysk became that place. This port now shelters some of the Black Sea Fleet's most critical assets: surface combatants, support vessels, and most importantly, submarines. Among them, an improved Kilo-class submarine. These boats are not designed to dominate through firepower. They dominate through silence. Diesel-electric propulsion, low acoustic signature, optimized for coastal and enclosed seas, exactly like the Black Sea. From here, a Kilo-class submarine can launch cruise missiles, threaten Ukrainian maritime traffic force air, and naval resources into constant alert. It doesn't need to fire to be effective. Its mere presence shapes the battlefield, and that is why this submarine mattered. For Russia, submarines became the last survivable platform in the Black Sea. Surface ships were pushed back, ports were exposed, air defenses were stretched. Submarines were supposed to remain invisible, protected by depth, distance, and doctrine. But Novorossiysk created a dangerous assumption. That distance alone equals safety. Ukraine understood this. They didn't need to destroy the Black Sea Fleet. They needed to undermine the belief that it was safe anywhere. Targeting this submarine wasn't about sinking steel. It was about eroding confidence. Because once a submarine is threatened in port, every submarine becomes vulnerable, even before it leaves the dock. And that is how this strike begins to make sense. To understand this attack, you have to forget radar, forget airspace, forget missile warning systems. Because this strike didn't come from above, it came from below. Ukraine's security service later confirmed the weapon used, an uncrewed underwater vehicle known as Subsea Baby. Very little about it is publicly disclosed, and that silence is intentional. But its purpose is clear. This drone was designed to operate where modern defenses are weakest: inside harbors, beneath surface traffic, and below sensor coverage. Underwater drones don't announce themselves. They don't emit heat signatures. They don't trigger air defense alerts. They move slowly, deliberately, and silently, guided by pre-programmed navigation, inertial systems, and short-range sensors. That makes them ideal for port penetration missions. Novorossiysk's defenses were built to stop. Cruise missiles, aircraft surface drones, they were not built to stop something crawling along the seabed. This is where the strategic shift becomes clear. Ukraine is no longer trying to overpower Russian defenses. It is trying to go around them. Subsea Baby represents a move toward asymmetric naval denial, low-cost platforms threatening high-value assets, forcing Russia to defend everywhere, at all times. And the economics matter. A submarine costs hundreds of millions of dollars. An underwater drone costs a fraction of that. If even one submarine is damaged, delayed, or withdrawn, the exchange is already a victory. But this wasn't just about cost. It was about access. If Ukraine can place an underwater drone behind a submarine in Novorossiysk, then every port, every pier, every harbor becomes a potential entry point. The sea itself becomes the weapon. And that is why this attack signals more than innovation. It signals intent. Ukraine is expanding the battlefield downward. In modern warfare, when you strike can matter more than how you strike. January 7th was not a random date, and 2:14 a.m. was not an accident. Naval bases operate on routines, shift changes, maintenance windows, predictable patrol cycles. Late night, early morning hours are when activity is lowest, not because defenses are down, but because attention is spread thin. Ukraine understood this. There was no large missile barrage that night, no diversion in the air, no surface drone activity to raise alarms. That absence was the distraction. Russian forces had been conditioned to expect attacks from above. Shahed-style drones, cruise missiles, fast-moving surface threats. Nothing came, so vigilance stayed routine. Meanwhile, underwater, the attack was already underway. An uncrewed vehicle doesn't rush. It doesn't react to fear or pressure. It follows its path with mechanical patience. By the time the drone entered the harbor zone, the critical decisions had already been made. Hours earlier, far from the target. This is the advantage of autonomous warfare. No last-minute course corrections, no radio transmissions to intercept, no pilot to detect, just execution. By choosing a moment of calm, Ukraine ensured something crucial. Surprise wasn't detected, it was assumed away. And in that assumption, the port became vulnerable, because defenses built for speed and shock are least effective against something slow, silent, and deliberate. The strike didn't overwhelm Novorossiysk. It slipped through it, and that is why timing was the real weapon. There were no fireballs, no towering smoke columns, no dramatic footage flooding social media, and that's exactly why this strike is easy to underestimate. Within hours, satellite imagery began to circulate. The submarine was still there, moored at the same pier, in the same position. Russia seized on that image. No sinking, they said. No damage, they claimed. But modern naval warfare doesn't measure success by what sinks. It measures success by what stops working. Analysts noticed something subtle. The submarine appeared to be sitting slightly lower in the water than before. Not dramatic, not obvious. But for a vessel designed around precise buoyancy and balance, small changes matter. There were no visible emergency flotation devices, no containment booms, no obvious damage control activity captured in open-source imagery. That absence tells its own story. Navies do not conduct repairs publicly. They do not advertise vulnerability, they isolate it. If the blast occurred where experts believe it did, near the stern, the consequences don't need to be catastrophic to be decisive. Damage to propulsion shafts, steering mechanisms, vibration dampening systems doesn't sink a submarine, it grounds it. Even minor distortion can increase acoustic noise, turning a stealth platform into a detectable one. A submarine that can be heard can't operate, which means inspections, dry dock access, weeks, possibly months of downtime. In wartime, that is loss. And that is why the real damage from this attack may never be shown on video, because the most effective naval strikes are the ones that leave ships floating, but useless. This attack wasn't designed to destroy a submarine. It was designed to change behavior. For Russia, the message is immediate and uncomfortable. If an underwater drone can reach a submarine inside Novorossiysk, then no port in the Black Sea is truly secure. Harbors were meant to be sanctuaries, places where ships rest, resupply, and prepare. Now they are targets. Russia will respond, it has to. Expect underwater sonar nets across harbor entrances, increased diver and patrol activity, layered seabed sensors and barriers. But these defenses come with a cost. They are expensive, they are slow to deploy, and they are reactive. Every new measure admits the same truth. The threat is real. Ukraine, meanwhile, has already moved on. This strike signals a broader strategy, one focused not on dominance but on denial. Ukraine doesn't need to control the Black Sea, it only needs to make it unsafe for Russian operations. Uncrewed underwater vehicles are ideal for that mission. They don't require air, superiority. They don't risk pilots, they scale faster than traditional naval platforms. A single successful strike forces Russia to defend every port, every pier, every anchorage, all the time. That's strategic pressure, and it extends beyond this war. Navies around the world are watching closely, because if submarines are vulnerable in port, then logistics, maintenance, and readiness across global fleets are exposed. This is the quiet militarization of the underwater domain, a shift that doctrine hasn't fully caught up to. January 7th, 2026 will not be remembered for explosions. It will be remembered as the moment when silence became a weapon, when the sea stopped being a shield and became a threat. And in that moment, Ukraine didn't just strike a submarine. It rewrote the rules of naval warfare. War is no longer decided only by who has the biggest fleet or the most missiles. It's decided by who adapts faster. On January 7th, 2026, Ukraine didn't challenge Russia ship for ship. It challenged the assumption that ports are safe, that submarines are untouchable, that the sea belongs to those with the largest navy. And that assumption didn't survive the night. If you want to understand how modern warfare is evolving, not through headlines but through strategy, technology, and real-world consequences. Like this video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Because the most important battles of the future won't always be loud, sometimes they happen in silence. And